Have you ever thought that you're not living your best life and could be happier if you didn't have a condition like PCOS, colitis, migraines, anxiety, depression, hormonal issues, or skin issues? Have you ever been passed from specialist to specialist, or you're waiting for an appointment about a physical or mental health condition and felt worried, frustrated, depressed? Or have you ever wondered how to go about being the fittest that you could ever be? Stay tuned. This podcast may change your life. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast. I am your host, Yalda Alawi, nutritional therapist, inflammation pioneer, and the founder of the Eat, Burn, Sleep platform, an acclaimed gut health and anti-inflammation platform which is helping thousands of people around the world reach optimal levels of physical and mental health, and guiding them on being the best versions of themselves and ultimately effortlessly. Throughout the series, I'm going to educate you about how all aspects of health are connected and give you some insight to the Eat, Burn, Sleep technique that I have developed with aim to give you some tools to tune into your best version so that you are living your best life, your way, in your corner of the world, a lot stronger, happier, and a lot healthier without extreme measures. In each podcast, I have invited various individuals who each have their own fascinating stories to share, and that will help further educate yourselves on nutrition and physical and mental health. I also invite specialists in their field, whether it is physical or mental health, to help you understand further the connection between gut health, chronic inflammation, mental health, immune system health, and physical health. I am so grateful that they are joining me. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast. Today I have a friend of mine joining us, Neda Varbanova from Healthy with Nedi. And today is going to be like a conversation between friends because we are friends. Neda and I actually met on Instagram a few years ago, and she was a guest of the first series of my podcast. Neda is about to publish a book, so I thought this is a great excuse to sit down, chit-chat, talk about health, mental health, girly things, hormones, and just a nice opportunity for us to catch up. So Neda is going to publish her book, the Mediterranean Meal Plan Cookbook, which is coming out on the 20th of December, right in time for Christmas. And I have been very proud and excited to watch Neda work on her cookbook involving her mom, her grandmother, and it feels pretty amazing to be sitting here talking about that. How are you, Neda, today? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to catch up with you. We always have such great conversations, and I love cooking with you. We got to get in the kitchen again soon.
Yeah, we do have a lot of fun cooking together.
Yeah, we do.
So, Neda, what inspired you to write this book?
So, I was really inspired by both my mom and my grandma. I've always wanted to have a cookbook since ever I can remember. Since I was a little girl, it was my dream. And I had a few opportunities in the last few years with other publishing houses that just didn't align with me. They wanted to focus more on weight loss or paleo or just make it more niche. And I really wanted to find a publisher that can work with me and what I really wanted and I believed, which is having a lot of family recipes, because that's really so meaningful to me. And a lot of the recipes in the book come from my mom and my grandma, but I have healthified them and have added some healthy with Nedi twists to it. So I'm super excited for everyone to get cooking.
Amazing. I've had a look through some of the recipes, and indeed, it does have that family feel, and that, in a way, no-nonsense approach. So, which recipe did you take the most pleasure creating?
There is 70 recipes total, and what I really like about this cookbook is that it's broken up into sections, not into breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert like most cookbooks. I wanted to make it a little bit different. So there is yaya starters, which means grandma starters in Greek. Yaya is grandma. Which includes salads, soups, stews, stuff like that. Then we have breakfast section, which includes vegetarian and vegan options. Then we have dishes from the land, dishes from the sea, plant-based section, sides, and desserts.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Yes, so a lot of your followers too would be able to benefit from many of the recipes in there since they follow your method. There's a good selection of that.
Amazing. And I'm a big advocate of, unless you have an allergy or very, very strong intolerance, to never stop at anything 100%. Otherwise, you lose the gut bacteria to digest it. Just to give a little bit of background to our listeners, Neda is American, of Bulgarian descent, and her grandmother lives in Greece. So there's a very strong Greek influence in her cooking as well. So there's Bulgarian influence, Greek influence, and of course Neda is extremely well traveled. So all over the world influence.
Yes, totally. I moved to America when I was 11 years old, and I had total culture shock when it came to the food because I had grown up with home-cooked meals all the time. And we had one McDonald's in Bulgaria, and that was such a treat for me. And we would go there on like the first day of school or the last day of school or like a birthday party, you know? And going out to dinner to a nice restaurant with my mom, it wasn't like a treat. It was more like a regular thing that, you know, we did on a regular basis, or she cooked at home. So when we moved to the States and there was literally like a McDonald's or Pizza Hut on every corner, I was just like, wow, this is crazy. You know, I've only seen one McDonald's in all of Bulgaria, and there's so many here. And I also discovered different foods, like packaged foods that I wasn't accustomed to eating, and frozen meals like mac and cheese or a hot pocket or the little like pizza squares that you bake, you know. So when I would go to one of my best friend's houses, we usually always had some sort of frozen meal. And when she would come to my house, she loved my mom's food. And for me, it was interesting to go to her house because I haven't really had that before. So it was an adjustment for me. And then I started experiencing IBS issues, a lot of bloating and constipation. I remember like when I was in middle school and high school, I would take sometimes laxatives and in order to be able to go to the bathroom, you know. And now, thankfully, I really don't have this issue. I'm very regular, and I truly believe it's the food that I'm eating. And it's really amazing. I mean, you know this from your own experience with health and food, how food really can be medicine. And it's just incredible what it can do to your body.
You know, I'm amazed that in all these years of being friends, I didn't know this about you, and I had something very similar happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up in Morocco, as you know, and I moved to France. I was 12. The first supermarket opened in Morocco when I was 12, the year I moved. Actually, I moved. I was 11 and a half, like you. I was just shy of 12 years old. And the first McDonald's opened in Morocco, in Rabat. I was 15 or 16.
Wow.
When I moved to France, I couldn't believe the food because before moving to France, I would go to France on holidays. So when you are on holidays, we would go to restaurants with, properly cooked food. But when you lived in France and you went to the canteen at school, I had never seen food like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was ultra processed, really, and the supermarkets had so much processed dairy products and biscuits. And of course, as a kid, I loved it. I was like, this is heaven.
Right.
Because in Morocco, it was, to me as a child, this was quite boring. Go to the fish market, buy fish. I was like, oh, are we having sole again? I had no idea how lucky I was. I was like, oh, are we going to have crayfish again and lobster? I used to complain as a kid. And in France, I was so excited about, oh my God, you can buy this yogurt that's flavored with chocolate and with a little whipped cream on top and all these processed biscuits. When in Morocco growing up, there was one brand called Henry's and that was it. Mm-hmm. So even the pastries we were having, everything was homemade. Yeah. Everything was homemade from scratch. The bread oftentimes was homemade in Morocco. At my grandparents' house, they'd bring milk from my grandfather's farms and churn the milk at home.
Yeah, exactly. Or make cheese or yogurt.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I experienced the same thing as you. I had what I know now was IBS. I had extreme stomach pain and I was often rushed to hospital, particularly at weekends. But now looking back, I know why. Because at weekends, we were having longer meals. I'd have much more dairy. We'd go and have long Sunday lunch with friends. And I love French cheese, but unfortunately, it doesn't really agree with me. So I was having too much cheese. Mm-hmm. And I remember being taken to hospital because of extreme tummy pains. And they would check for appendicitis. But if it wasn't appendicitis, they just sent you home saying it's nothing.
Right.
And of course, that disturbs my gut bacteria. And then, my story of having developed much later ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune condition. And it was maybe partly triggered by that. Of course, I carry autoimmunity in my genes, and they got expressed because of, an inflammatory lifestyle. But it's so interesting. You and I went from countries where everything was homemade to places where things were more processed, and we immediately experienced, both of us, symptoms.
Right, yeah.
It's fascinating. And now, I guess, the beauty of what's happening now, although so many people are experiencing digestive issues and inflammatory issues, the upside of that is now we're aware and we're having a conversation and there are solutions and we know what causes what more and more.
Yeah, and I think it's so important also to be in tune with your body, because what food works for you may not work for me and vice versa.
That's correct.
So if somebody's noticing bloating after having rice or yogurt, then they should start keeping a little bit of a food journal to see, was it the rice or was it the yogurt? And then see how they feel if they eliminate that food for some time. And there's so many amazing substitutes now.
That's right.
But that's another thing, that there's too much out there, and you go to the market, and if you want to get some sort of gluten-free cookies, for example, there's so many different kinds, and a lot of them are marketed as healthy because the package might say it's gluten-free or it's sugar-free, but what's really inside, So I think reading the ingredients is so important, because what's in the front of the package may not necessarily be actually healthy. And I always think sticking to 7 to 10 ingredients is key. And if there's a product that has like 20 plus ingredients, then you probably shouldn't really be eating that.
That's a good rule of thumb. In what you're saying, there are two really interesting things. The first thing, what you're talking about, is each person is different. It is so true. And the same person, depending on how your gut health is, there are times where you might be tolerating something less or more. And that's a reflection of your gut bacteria. I myself, at some points when I was very inflamed, I felt like I was allergic to everything. It was awful.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got better, I was able to really have more and more foods and not react as strongly. And the key to improve that is to improve the gut bacteria. Oftentimes people ask me, they're like, oh, which probiotic shall I take? The thing is, everything that we put in our mouth will feed our bacteria in a positive or in a negative manner. So if we're eating things that are inflammatory and damage gut health, we can't undo that with a probiotic pill.
Right. And a lot of sugar and highly processed foods. Yeah. That just feeds the candida and...
Exactly. And your second point about the additives, it's interesting you're saying this because I did this reel actually on Instagram a few days ago, showing some of the additives which are linked to gut inflammation, obesity, and metabolic disease. And they're FDA approved. They're approved by every government. So you're right, reading the labels is really important, but it's true that in the US...
it's worse than here.
It's crazy. You see a slice of cake. I remember in airports, when you run out of options and you go to a little shop, news agent, and you're trying to see if you can buy something to eat. And literally everything has 20, 30 ingredients in them, and it's basically not food. Right. It looks like food, it tastes like food, but it's not food. It's some kind of weird product that's making us ill.
Yeah, I went through a stage when I had to eliminate gluten and dairy for some period of time. And I remember being in the grocery store and I was checking out the butter. And there is vegan butter that literally had like 20 ingredients in it. And then I found this goat butter made from goat's milk instead of cow's milk, which is a lot easier on the digestive system and it's closer to mother's milk. So I was just looking at the goat's butter has literally one ingredient and then the vegan one had 20. So I got the goat's, and also I did after some tests, intolerances, and I was able to find out that I can tolerate goat's and sheep's milk. I'm still not having it like every day, but if I do, it's usually just a little bit of cheese or yogurt. And I stay away from any sorts of milk.
You're so right about the vegan processed products.
Yeah.
I went to this food tech talk a while ago, and it was talking about the vegan market, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a business.
The same thing with the vegan meats, like some of the burgers out there.
Correct.
I think if you can eat meat and you have good quality grass-fed beef, you're better off eating that than getting, the Impossible Burger or whatever one is out there.
So about 2 years ago, the vegan market was about $40 billion, okay, globally.
Mm-hmm.
It's expecting to be 36 billion by 2026. Okay, so people don't realize, they think that being vegan, is such a great choice, but actually it's marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, if you want to save the planet, the most important thing is to not waste, because about 30 to 40% of food in supermarkets is wasted and goes to the bin. So buying high quality foods, just like you described, grass-fed beef, which is going to be higher in omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory because they're having grass instead of corn and grain, in moderate quantity is so much better for you and so much better for the planet.
Exactly. I agree.
We might get cancelled for this, but we had to say it.
Yeah, and look, I'm all about adding plants to our diets, and I focus on plant-based eating. Definitely, I'm not vegan, and I don't only plant-based, but I try to have some sort of vegetable with every meal.
For sure.
If it's breakfast and I'm having a smoothie, or I'll have a green juice, or I'll have some berries, or if I'm having eggs, then I'm going to add spinach or asparagus or zucchini to the scrambled eggs, Then for lunch, I usually love having a salad with some sort of protein in it. And dinner is the same thing, like I love cauliflower rice with chicken or salmon, or zucchini noodles with a nice beef bolognese sauce. And I really believe that if you're out for dinner, for example, you know how we like to eat, we'll share everything. And I think sharing is caring is great, because then you get to try. And one of my weaknesses is pasta. So when I go, you've seen me eat pasta when we're out. I love it. When I'm with friends, I like to share the pasta. And if not, then I'll take half of it to go home, or I ask for a starter size portion, which a lot of restaurants are actually willing to do. And something I've been reading about is that if you're having a salad or some sort of vegetable right before you eat the carbohydrate, then your blood sugar levels won't spike up, and it's much better for you.
Yeah, because the fiber makes it spend longer in the stomach level, so the sugar is really slower in the blood. But Neda, I have a question for you. There's something you're excellent at, which I am rubbish at. You're really good at portion sizes. So Neda is the queen of ordering pudding, desserts, and having 2 spoons and stopping there. I can't do that. Give us your secret. How do you manage to, limit the portions in restaurants? Because you eat out much more than I do, and you taste many more foods than I do. Your secret is to not go overboard in terms of portions. How do you do that?
I really think it's just about making smart choices when what you're ordering, Like I'll always start with a salad or a soup that's a clear broth soup, not like a creamy mushroom soup, for example. But I love starting with vegetables, like a green bean salad or a lentil salad, which has fiber in it. Artichokes are great with avocado, healthy fats. And I think by the time I get to dessert, I've had such a good, healthy meal that I'm genuinely so full that I don't really need to eat the whole slice of cake. And again, I love sharing. So I'll get a slice of cake or whatever kind of dessert it is with whoever I'm eating it, and just have 2-3 bites. And it's so delicious and so decadent, and I just feel completely satisfied. But if I had a very light meal, like let's say just a few bites of a salad, then I would probably end up eating the whole cake. So I think eating a really good, nourishing, nutritious meal is important.
Yeah, and I like your approach of still ordering pudding and satisfying yourself so you don't feel deprived. Also, it's a nice social thing to share.
It is.
And actually, it's good for our immune system to be exposed to other germs.
Yeah, and I've had some clients who, let's say, like they've been so restrictive that they won't get the dessert, and then they go home and they're in front of the TV, and 2 hours later they're going to eat a whole can of ice cream. And that's so much worse than having a couple of bites of chocolate cake at dinner.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Rewiring the brain to moderation is actually the key to long-term health.
Yeah.
So your book's coming out on the 20th of December, and what happens after that? Are you going on a tour for signing? What happens when you publish a book?
I haven't really decided. I think everyone just makes their own decisions, how much they want to market it and promote it. I'm thinking now of doing a launch party in New York City and some sort of book signing events in Barnes and Nobles and maybe some Pilates studios. Yeah, me and the publishing house are working on that right now.
That's fun. That's great. And it'll be available on Amazon, right?
It's already available. Yeah, a lot of people have pre-ordered it, even in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, Canada, like everywhere.
That's great.
Yeah. And for those who are in the States, they're going to be able to, if they pre-order now, they'll actually receive it on December 20th. And for international orders, it's about 4 weeks after for shipping purposes. So it really makes a great Christmas gift.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Because we all have that mom or grandma or sister that loves cooking, so.
Yeah, and I love having, my kitchen is full of cookery books. And what I do is I often get inspired and I'll take those recipes and I give them an anti-inflammatory twist.
Right.
I'm always reading recipes. That's how I get inspired.
I love it. I love cookbooks too. I don't usually use them for cooking so much, but I just love flipping through. And my dream was to always have a cookbook that has a photo of the recipe on one side and then the recipe on the other side, because I think it really just shows you what the recipe looks like and you want to eat it. And there's some cookbooks out there that don't have a picture with every recipe, and I just totally skip over that,
I can't believe you're saying this. I was having this conversation yesterday because I was thinking of maybe doing a book, but it won't be just recipes. It'll be a mix of things. And I was talking internally to someone at Eat, Burn, Sleep, and I was saying, but the one thing I do not want is a recipe without a picture, because any cooking book that has a recipe without a photo, you will be sure I'm never trying that recipe.
Exactly. Literally, my point. So when my publishing house told me that I can have that, I was literally on the seventh heaven. And the other really cool thing is that usually, when you sign a book deal, they will choose the photographer. And you are not always able to be present at the photo shoot. So you basically give your recipes to the photographer and like food stylists who has never made them, and you just trust them to make it however they end up making it. And I got to work with my photographer, Oksana, who has been photographing all of my recipes for my website since I started the website. And we've been working together for probably 7 years now, and we've become very good friends. And they offered her the deal to work on my cookbook and shoot all 70 recipes. And it was just such a cool experience because we got to cook together and shoot together. And I basically moved to her house on the weekends. We did 3 weekends and we shot everything like that, and we were just like working machines. My mom came one weekend to help us, and her kids and husband were just like tasting all the food, and we were having so much fun. Yeah.
Neda is actually a machine. When you get in work mode, I don't know many people who are as efficient as you are in the kitchen. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Neda has the most incredible attention to detail. So
that's the Virgo in me.
Incredible.
It's probably a blessing and a curse.
What, to be like that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you notice everything you do.
Everything, yeah.
So I have one last question for you. You're always on an airplane. You love traveling within the US, outside of the US. You go to Greece to see your grandmother. In the summer, you're in Europe seeing friends. Mm-hmm. What is your secret to stay fit and happy when on the go?
I think it's really, for me, finding a way of eating, which for me has been the Mediterranean diet. And I don't really think it's a diet. It's more of a lifestyle. You're just eating real foods. I really do try to avoid snacking and processed foods in general. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I try to eat real meals, and it just makes me feel so good and happy and energized. And you see your skin is clearer, you sleep better. You've known me for so many years. My weight has stayed the same. Like, I don't go up and down, a lot of people do, because I just maintain the same way of eating, which is the Mediterranean diet. And that's what my cookbook is all about. And I do have a 30-day meal guide in there that plugs in all the recipes and just gives example of the readers how I eat. And I really worked hard on it because I wanted to, I didn't just plug in recipes randomly here and there, but I made sure that they work in order to help people if their goal is to also lose weight, So that's it. And then also when I'm traveling, for me, it's really important to get some sort of movement, whether it's going out for a nice walk in the park and listening to some music or a podcast. I love meditating at night. It really just helps me zen and get a better night's sleep, or taking a nice hot bath with magnesium salts. So I think, if you're sticking to a routine that you have at home and you sort of implement that when you're traveling, then, you're not missing out on anything.
I think that's very good advice. It's all about routine, really. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes easy.
Right.
At the beginning, it is hard to implement a healthy routine, but once you have rewired your brain after 21 days, it becomes second nature.
And the other thing really is, don't beat yourself up, because we're all humans. We all make mistakes, and you may have one bad day of eating, and doesn't mean that the whole week should go down the drain,
One day is so easy to get back.
Yeah.
A week is more challenging.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, like let's say you go for lunch and you have a burger and fries, and then you decide to get a chocolate croissant. Fine. But then when you go for dinner, or you're having dinner at home, I would have a lighter meal, like a green soup or a nice salad, something that can balance out what you ate earlier, instead of just adding on more processed foods like that. Exactly. Just because you slept at lunch,
Yeah. Yeah, that's very good advice.
Thank you.
Well, Instagram can be such a positive thing.
Yeah, it brought us together.
It brought us together. You hear so many times that social media is really awful, and there are, nasty sides to it, because unfortunately there are some people literally with mental illnesses who are writing horrid stuff when they should go and see a doctor.
Right.
But the upside is meeting other people, connecting, helping people, which you and I do. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad we've met, and I'm so glad I had you today on the podcast. Thank you so much, Neda.
Thank you so much. I love being with you.
And for everyone who doesn't know Neda yet, you can follow her on Instagram. Her handle is Healthy with Nedi. You can check her website, healthywithnedi.com, and her book is available on Amazon and will be linked on her website, on her Instagram, as well as in the podcast description. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to all of you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to go on eatburnsleep.com to learn more about gut health and chronic inflammation. I would really appreciate if you could rate this podcast, and of course feel free to share it with anyone who might enjoy it. Have a beautiful day.